Hello and welcome back to Muslim IT Console. In our last video, we saw how to install Windows Server 2012 R2. In this video, we are going to be talking about Active Directory Domain Services as well as what DNS. So we are going to be installing two roles, Active Directory Domain Services as well as what DNS. So these are the two roles we'll be talking about today. So we are going to see how to install Active Directory Domain Services. Then after the installation, we're going to be configuring, and after configuration, we are going to promote it as a domain controller. So these are the things that we're going to be performing. So as usual, we're going to power on our VirtualBox. And once it gets started, we are going to start our server. So this is my server, so I'm going to start it, and I'll click on start. So I'm just going to minimize this and wait for it to start up. So we are waiting. So it is powering up. Alright, so it's ready now. So I'm going to change my view into the full screen mode as usual. So I've switched into the full screen mode. To insert, control, delete, all I have to do is to come down here, click on input, and the keyboard I'll insert, control, delete right here. Then I'll put in the password that I kept. So I'm inputting my password right here, and I've logged in. Alright, so that's all we did. So what we're going to do is we're going to be installing this particular role. So now let's talk about what roles and the features does. Now if we talk about Windows Server, or we talk about server, only the work of a server is to provide some services. So as the name suggests, it provides what, or it makes services available. And once these services are available, clients make use of the services that is available. So our client computers get resources from the server. So the server is supposed to make resources available, and once they are available, client systems will make use of the services that were provided by the server. So this year we have installed an operating system called Windows Server 2012 R2, and from here we are going to be talking about some of the roles and features that can be found inside our server. So on my taskbar, I can find my server manager right here. So I'm going to click on that, and this is my server manager. So from here you can see some of the things that I can perform. So on my dashboard, I can see my dashboard, and it's divided into some portions. So the first part, I have to configure my local server, or you have to configure your local server if you haven't done that. So you have to click on that, and it takes you in here. So you have to change your computer name. You click on this option to change your computer name. By default, it's a join to the work group. Now after we are done with everything, it will be changed into what? A domain controller. And our firewall is on. If you want to put it off, you can put it off. So here you can perform basic configuration like changing the name and then changing work group, and even putting on and off your firewall. If I click on all servers, you have multiple servers running. You see them running up here. But if I click on all servers, it shows only one server. That's my name, the name of my server, and then the IP address, and then the performance of it. If I click on file and storage, you can see the hard disk that is available in here. That's not our target. So I'm going to click back on the dashboard. So on the dashboard, the second option is to add roles and features. So roles is for short. If let's put roles as players. So when you go to the let's say in the field of football, we've seen that players, before they are able to play very, very well, they need people to cheer them up. So the people that they will be cheering them up are their supporters. So we are tempting, or we call the players as roles, and then we term the people or the spectators that will be supporting the players, we call them what? Features. So in server, there are so many services that server can provide for us, and those services is what we term as what? Roles. So in order to see the services that is being performed, you can click on add roles and features to check them all. But before you come to select the second option, make sure that you have performed the basic stuff like changing your date and your time. We did that in a previous video. So if you haven't done that, go back and then watch the first video, and then you get to know how to change your date and your time. The basic stuff that you need to do is to set your date and time, and after setting your date and time, you change your computer name and then set a strong password for your system. That's all you need to do. So once this is done, then we're going to go ahead and choose the second option. So we're going to add roles and features. So we click on add roles and features. Before you begin, make sure that you have a strong password. We have done that. Make sure that your system has a static IP address, and that we haven't done. So we have to assign an IP address to our system. So that's what we're going to do now. So I'm going to show you two ways in assigning an IP address to your system. I'm going to show you the graphical method, and I'll also be showing you the command line or the command line or graphical user and the command line interface. So let's minimize our server manager and we do that. So the first part, or to change the IP address, is to come down here to your network adapter on your taskbar. Right click on it and then choose Open Network and Sharing Center. And here it brings you to the adapter. So I can click on Change Adapter Settings, or I can click right here. Then it takes me into the configuration. Or you click on Change Adapter Settings, then to show you all the adapters, then you can double click on it to check the IP address that has been assigned. So you can see the IP address that has been given to my system. That's not the address I want to use, so I can modify the address. So I have to come to Properties and then locate Internet Protocol version 4 and then use the following and provide the IP address. So I would like to use 192.168.0.1. That's the address I prefer. And then I click Insert Remarks and then to populate the address for me. And then also I'm going to put in here my DNS address. So I'm going to put in here 192.168.0 and then 1. So that's what I want to provide as my DNS address. Then I click on OK and then OK. And then you check right here, you can see that I have my IP address set up and it's running. And my DNS server 2 has been assigned as well. So what if you like to change the address? So for a reason, I'm going to change the address from 0 to 1. So how do you do that? So what I have to do, I don't want to use this interface any longer. So I'm going to close this interface and I'm going to use another interface, which is the command prompt. So start button plus X will launch this interface. Then you choose command prompt as administrator, or you can click on the start button, type CMD, command prompt pops up. Then you right click on command prompt, then you select what? Run as administrator. So that's what you have to do. So I can run as administrator and command prompt will be shown up as you can see right here. So I'm going to increase the font under properties, go to fonts and then increase it a little bit. So I'm going to select the last option, then I click on OK. So at least you can see it appears right here. Remember, if I type the command host name, I'll be able to know the name of my server. You can see right here. If I type ipconfig, I can also see the IP address that I gave to my server. So you can see right here. If I want to make changes to the address, I can type ipconfig. I can type netsh space interface IP set address name equals, then in between in here you put in the adapter's name. My adapter's name is called Ethernet, so we put in here Ethernet. Then you come outside of it, then you type static, and then the IP address you prefer to use. Let's say I want to use 10.0.0.1, and then the serial mask for this is 255.255, sorry, this class A .0.0.0, then execute this command. So if I type ipconfig now, you realize that the IP address has changed into 10.0.0.1. So I want to revert it back to the previous address, which was 192.168.0.1. So in order to make adjustment, you have to come back again, edit the address that we gave. So I'm going to come back, edit the serial mask, and then the IP. Then 192.168.0.1. That's what I want to use. And then I bring a space, and then I'll type my serial mask, which is 255.255.255.0, which is class C. I'm going to execute this command now. Now if I want to clear my screen, I'll type CLS, and it's going to clear up the screen so that I can have a free space. So I have to type ipconfig again, and then you can see that the IP address shows right here, 192.168.0.1. I can type ping the address, which is 192.168.0.1, and then you can see there's a reply. So that is how to set an IP address for your system. So I can also type ipconfig with a space /o. It displays all the configuration that I need to know, every details about the adapters we have in this. So you can see it shows me the IP address and then the DNS address that I set. You can see right, it's also showing right there. So type CLS. So that has been taken care of. So I have assigned my IP address as 192.168.0.1. So now I can go back to my server manager, click on add roles and features. Now you can see that is done, the IP address 2 is done, and you should also update your server also to the latest updates. So I'm going to click on next button. We don't want this interface to show you any law to be showing to you anytime you click on this option. You can decide to skip, but I prefer to be seeing this often. So I click on next. I'm going to leave it to role based and feature because that's what we are working with. We said the rules are the services that is provided by the server, and then the features are going to support the roles in performing their functions. So I'm going to click on next, and it is going to detect my computer name, that's DC1, the IP address I gave to my system, which is 2.15, and that's not the address I gave. So let me cancel it out again. So the best thing I can do, let me just sign out from this server. Let's sign out. Okay, and then we try to log in again. So to log in, you click on input, and then you choose keyboard, and then you click on insert, and then type in your password to log in once again. Alright, so our server manager logs in, click on add roles and features. So it's still loading, so you have to wait for it to finish up. So it's done. Click on next once again, and now you can see I have my, so if you don't see your IP address, you just sign out and log in again, and then you should see your address shown. So that's my address. I'm okay now, so you can see my operating system. I have to click on next, and then these are the rules that I was talking to you about. So the rules that is needed, or the first service that our server can provide for us. You can see all these are services that a server can provide for us. So among these, the service you want to go in for is Active Directory Domain Services. So you can see Active Directory Domain Services stores information about objects in a network and makes information available to users and network administrators. Now, Active Directory uses domain controllers, gives network users access to permanent resources anywhere through the network through a single login process. So what you're going to use Active Directory to do now, so we check the box and then we click on OK. So we're going to install that. So now what Active Directory, once we get it installed, there will be a particular package that we are going to be dealing with very soon. That is called Active Directory Users and Computers. In short, Active Directory Users and Computers, or Active Directory Domain Services, helps us to be able to manage our services that is running on our system. So it's going to help us manage user accounts, manage computer accounts, and a whole bunch of stuff falls in here. So that's why we are setting up. So we're going to install, and after the installation, you're going to configure. And after the configuration, DNS will be added up. So DNS stands for Domain Naming System, and its responsibility is to resolve host names into its IP address, as well as the IP into its corresponding host name. So that's what we're going to do. We're not going to check it up right here. We're just going to install the directory, and then you promote it. So I'm going to click on next, and you can see these features are going to support Active Directory Domain Services to perform its task. So we leave it as a default, then we click on next, and then we click on next once again, then we click on install. So this is going to go ahead to install Active Directory Domain Services. And after the installation, these extra features is going to be installed. So among these features, Active Directory Domain Services is going to be installed. Active Directory module for PowerShell is going to be installed. Active Directory Administrative Center will be there. A whole bunch of stuff. When Active Directory Domain Services, it contains group policy. A whole bunch of stuff will be installed for us. So we wait for a few minutes it to be done. Good. So installation is done. So it says that you should promote this server to a domain controller. Now, if we talk about domain controller comprises of two roles in server. So the roles that it comprises of are Active Directory Domain Services, as well as DNS. They are like a boy and a girlfriend. So without them, well, when you install Active Directory without the boyfriend, there's no way it's going to work fully for you. So I'm going to click outside, and we'll do that later on. So if you install a particular role and it needs to be configured, you can see at the very top it is a notification panel. It will give you a prompt. If I click on it, it tells me that I have to promote. I haven't done that, so configuration is required for Active Directory to work. Now if I click on tools, all roles that we install on our server will be shown under tools. So if you can see here, I have one, two, three, four, 5 files were installed after the installation of our Active Directory. The one that we'll be using to manage user accounts and computers will be this one. So we're going to talk about that one later. But let's launch it. You realize that it's not working. So if I click on OK, you can see it gives me an error. So let's see the error. There's an error because Active Directory is not configured. So if it's configured, I'll be able to access this smoothly. So I'm going to click outside, and I'm going to promote it. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to click on that notification panel, then I click on this option, promote this to a domain controller. But before that, let me show you something. So if your system is set to the work group by default, so you can see I'm joined to a work group. Now after I promote it to a domain controller, and the only day you realize that you change from work group to domain controller or domain. So that's what you should observe. So I'm going to go ahead, click on promote, and then it brings me to this interface. So in here, like you are setting up your new server. So you can see you are supposed to purchase a domain online. You can decide to purchase some of these domains from godaddies.com. Make sure that you own that particular domain. But the domain you're going to provide, if you don't own, then you have to click on what? Add new forest. Then you put in the domain you want to use. I want to use Kinwoo's lab.local. I'm using local because I don't own this account. So if you don't own the account, then you don't have to what? So put in the account or put in the domain that you own there. But if you don't own that domain and you still want to use it, this is not going to go online. So we leave it as what? Local. Local simply means that it's going to be hosted on your local system, which is this server. So if you're going to go for com.gh and the rest, then you have to make sure that you have paid for it. If not, don't try that. So I'm going to use local because I haven't purchased this domain yet. Then I'm going to click on next. And then from here, you can see I have my functional levels. So if I want my server to support lower versions of server, I have to choose those lower versions. So if I wanted to support server 2008, I can choose server 2008 R2, server 2012. But if I choose to go for the domain functional level and a forest level, if I leave everything to default, then they will support only the current server 2012 and above. Okay. So now I'm going to provide this password. This password, in case my DNS or my domain controller, encounters an issue or an error, that's the password they will ask me in order to resolve it for me. So I'm going to put a password right here. So go ahead and set a password for yours as well. So after you're done, you click on next once again. So you wait for a few minutes. It's going to determine your domain name or your NetBIOS domain name, which is Kinwoo's Lab. So once it detects it, I can go ahead and click on next. So it creates a database folder that is going to be storing records of all user accounts that we are going to create, and then computer accounts, a whole bunch of stuff. At the same time, it's going to store log files to keep track of any activity that goes on, whether it's successful or it wasn't. And then it's going to create a sysvol folder that will help me to be able to share some content online for people to access on my network. So I'm going to click on next. I will leave everything as default. Remember, you can change the location if you want to. You click on this and then you can change the location where you want to drop it. But by default, it's going to create a folder in Drive C called Windows. Within Drive C, Windows, and then another folder will be created called NTDS for all of it. Then I'm going to click on next. I'll leave everything as default, and I'm going to click on next once again. So it's going to check prerequisites to see if I have performed the basic stuff that we spoke about, setting your IP address, changing date and time, restarting your computer, a whole bunch of stuff, and setting. So it's checking. So I've passed all that. I've done that successfully. So I'll go ahead and install. So I'm going to click on install. So you realize that I haven't installed DNS yet, but at the end of the day, it's going to add up DNS here. So you can see I installed Active Directory Domain Service. It's showing right here. So after this is done, my system will be restarted. So once the system restarts, it will add DNS also right here for me. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on install. So I'm just going to give it a time, and it's going to finish the installation for us. So give it some few minutes, and then it will be done. So it's waiting for DNS installation to finish up. So we are waiting. Checking if Group Policy Management Console needs to be installed. If yes, it will install it. If not, it wouldn't do that. It's going to create your directory partitions for you. It's going to create Active Directory Domain Services, setting up LSA policy information, setting up Kubernetes DNS computer, securing, configuring DNS services on your computer. So you'll be prompted that the system is going to sign out. So after this, the system is going to be prompted that it's signing out before it will install Active Directory, and then officially, once the system restarts, DNS will be fully, Active Directory Domain Services will be installed and configured successfully. So now, when we restart, what we're going to be doing is to be configuring DNS. So our server is going to restart, so it's restarting. So wait, please wait. So we are waiting for a few minutes because it is now setting up everything for us. So it is converting from web group to domain. So it will take a few minutes. So let's wait. So it's now applying security policies to the system. And boom, we are here. So I'm going to click on OK now. So now, in order to log in, I'm going to click on this back arrow, and then I'll come back in here. So you can see that now, in order to log into my system, so you can see there are two ways in signing in now. So in order to sign in, I have to provide my domain name / my domain username before I can log into the domain. But if I want to log into the web group as default previously, I have to put my commander name / the username, that is admin, before I can log in, not a domain. But now, because we've logged into our domain, I can see that it says that we should sign into our domain name, which is Kingwood's Lab. So I'm going to put in my name there, which is admin, and then the password. So just put the password, and then you can see I've been able to log in. So now let's go to the computer properties and confirm what I was telling you to observe. So if you check in here, you realize that now I'm no more on web group any longer. I'm now on what? The domain, and that's my domain name, kingwoodslam.local. So that is it. So now the Active Directory domain services is now configured. So if I click and then select Active Directory users and computers now, you can see that now it's going to work perfectly. So you can see it's now working for me, and I have some built-in users. We'll come back to this one later on, but I just want to show you that this is the interface you're going to be used in managing user accounts, computers, OUs, and a whole bunch of stuff. So I'll talk to you more about the directory later on. All right. So now that we have installed Active Directory, we can see that now DNS also is installed. Now Active Directory domain services is configured because the boyfriend DNS is available. Now we have to install the boyfriend. We have to configure the boyfriend also so that it also be in good shape. So now let me go ahead and launch DNS. Now if I launch DNS, that's the name of my computer. Just double click on it, and you can see that we have some options here. Now we send that DNS resolve host names into its corresponding IP address, as well as its IP address into host name. So if I expand for lookup zone, you can see that we said that DNS is resolving IP host names into host IP address. So if I click on this domain, you can see I have my host name, which is DC1, and its corresponding IP address. So I'm seeing one aspect. So that means that for lookup zone is used in resolving host names into its corresponding IP, whereas reverse lookup zone will do the opposite. So that means that the IP will come before the domain name. So that's what we have to do. So but then for lookup zone is taken care of, but reverse lookup zone has not been configured yet. So we have to go ahead and configure it. So in order to configure the reverse lookup zone, just have to right click on the reverse lookup zone. You can see it says you have to create a new zone. Then we click on new zone, click on next, and then we leave everything as default. Then we leave it as default to all DNS servers running on domain controller in this domain, which is kimuslab.local. Click on next, and then we are not working with IP version 6, so we leave it as to Internet Protocol version 4 reverse lookup zone. Click on next, and then here you put in the first 3 parts of your IP address, which is 192.168 and 0. Click on next, and then you can see as I type it, it's reversing it for me. That's what we meant by reverse lookup zone. Click on next, and imagine we are supposed to have 4 portions, but our last part of the address, which is 1, is not showing, so you have to get it up running. So we leave everything secure. That's recommended for Active Directory. Click on next, and then we finish it up. So that's been authorized in Active Directory for us now. So you can see that now I have it created, but the last portion of the address didn't show up, so we have to get it up. So I'm going to right click on it, select new pointer PTR, and I'm going to input my IP address right here. The last part is 1, and I'll put in the host name. The host name is my computer name, so let's go to computer properties once again to confirm the details you're asking for. So this one you're looking for, my computer name dc1.kimuslab.local. I can type it manually, or I can use this interface to search for it by clicking on browse, dc1 for lookup zone, and then Kimuslab, and then scroll to the last option and choose my IP. So you can see my domain and its IP. Click on OK, check this mark, and then click on OK now. So now I can see that now it's going to resolve the IP into its corresponding domain name. For lookup zone converted the domain name into its corresponding IP, whereas reverse lookup zone converted the IP to its corresponding one. So once you're done, you have to check to be sure whether DNS is fully functional or not. So what we have to do is to right click on your DC1, that is your domain name, and then you click on launch NS lookup. Now if you click on launch NS lookup, what you are expected to see is the fully qualified name, which is dc1.kimuslab.local plus its corresponding IP that we give. So if that one doesn't show, then it means it's not working. So now it's giving us some warning sign, or it's giving us that okay, DNS request is timeout. Timeout was 2 seconds, and then it's giving us IP version 6 address, but it doesn't know. So the default server is supposed to appear as the computer name plus my domain plus my IP, which is IP version 4. Because we were working with IP version 4, the system is listening to IP version 6. So what you have to do is to right click on my domain and then go to properties, and you can see it's listening to IP version 6. Check only the following IP, uncheck IP version 6, and then you apply, and then you click on OK. Now let's run it again. So if I run once again, you realize that now it is showing it for me right here. So I have to type in manually Ctrl+C to come out of it, and now I'm going to type NS lookup manually myself. NS lookup, enter. Now you can see that now if I launch it from the DNS interface and I type also, it's supposed to give me the same detail, but now you can see it is giving me the name and the IP, but it is not doing it for the second option when I type NS lookup. That means I have to fix this one. So it is still listening to IP version 6. So I have to go into my network and adapter settings to make some adjustments. Properties, change the data settings, Ethernet, and go to properties once again. I'm going to uncheck IP version 6 because I'm not working with IP version 6. Then I'm going to double click on IP version 4, and you can see now I kept the same details as my IP address, but as a result to a loopback address, I have to revert it back. So I'm going to clear everything here, 192.168.0 and then 1, click on OK, another one, and then check my details, and you can see that now it's showing right here. And then I can close everything out, close this one also out, close that one out. Now let's run it again, launch NS lookup, and now you can see that it's working. So now DNS has been configured successfully. So in this video, we've seen how to install Active Directory, and then we promoted Active Directory to your domain controller by installing DNS as well. So now this is how to have Active Directory and DNS installed. So remember that any role you install, that role needs to be configured, and once it's configured, it becomes fully functioning. But remember, if you don't also configure, you install the role and you don't configure the role or the service, there's no way that particular service is going to run for you. So now you've been able to install 2 roles, which is Active Directory domain services as well as DNS. So Stay tuned for the upcoming video. See you in the next video. Bye.